All right, so we made our way inside the house. We're actually in the living room here. We got a couple things happening here which are pretty interesting. Obviously our curved windows, you can see we have our shade pockets already installed in the coffered ceiling soffit there, but we're here to talk about the Timber HP bat. So got a piece of it here. We touched upon it outside there, but it is in fact a wood fiber bat. So this is a recycled product, right? They get a bunch of wood chips, they get them delivered to the factory, they grind them up, they add the additives to the insulation, and then they form it into this very large bat that then gets cut up into the various sizes. So I believe they're available in the 3.5, the 5.5. They might even be a little larger. When we go back to the studio, we'll dive into some of their specs. But you know, the guys did a beautiful job here. You can see they basically fill this cavity flush, fills it up really nice tight fitting here, which is what you want, right? And then obviously we'll drywall over this. It's not bulging out. I am gonna pull this piece out. I'll fix it back for these guys when I'm done. But I wanted to remind you, our wall assembly is such that it's a 2x6, 24-inch on center with a zip R9 on the outside. So that zip R9 is continuous. So when you're talking about wall insulation and you sit there and say, okay, well, we have 21 plus 9 for the zip R sheathing, we're at R30. I have an R30 wall. Well, I really don't have an R30 wall, right? The cavity area where I'm at right here is in fact R30. But where I have the stud at 5.5 inches, that's probably maybe about R5.5, maybe R6. So just call it R6 to round up our numbers. So that framing, I call it the opaque area. The opaque area, if we took all of these studs and we accumulated them to one width on the whole floor here, we would probably come in somewhere around 15% plus or minus, right? It depends on the house, depends on the framer, how many windows, there's a lot of variables, but I've counted enough studs in houses to understand that on a good note, you're probably at 12%, on a bad note, you're probably at 17%. So I use the 15% number because one, it's easy math and it's an easy number to remember. So 15% is the framing. Now, if I don't put the zip on the outside, I have R21 here, and this is probably around 65% of the cumulative wall frame. Windows here make up that remaining 20%, right? 65, 70, 80, 20. Yes, just checking my math, making sure I don't need anybody writing in saying, hey, you don't know how to add 3 numbers. So 65% of the wall is R21. So when I sit there and say, okay, I have R30, yeah, I do for 65% of the wall. For this 15% of the wall, I have the zip R9 on the outside, and remember R9 with the 6 at the stud. So that's R15 here. So it's about 75% of what I have here. And if we move further down the wall and look at the windows, even though these are some of the best built windows in the world at roughly about R7, 7.5, these are Schuco aluminum triple glazed with a center of glass of 0.10, so that's R10, but when you average it out against the frame, it's probably in the R7-ish range, right? So 7, 15, and 21. When I take those 3 numbers and normalize it across the building, then I'm probably coming in somewhere like around R15-ish, maybe R18, somewhere around that number, right? It's not nearly the R30 that I claimed, right? So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm saying when people say, well, we do this insulation level, I want to just make sure that you truly understand what is actually happening in the wall. And the fact that we have the zip R9, look what it does to that opaque area, right? We're talking R6-ish if we just did plywood sheathing or OSB sheathing. The minute I put that R9, this area goes from R6 to R15, right? Immediate increase that's more than double the R value here. So there's that continuity, well, you know, one of my favorite words, aspect of the wall system that comes into play there. And now you're beginning to understand why it's so important that rigid insulation is probably the most important insulation in the wall, right? Not because it's not the highest, it's because of its continuous effort that not only does it blanket the cavity area, it blankets that 15% of the opaque area, which means that R9 is working on 80% of the wall. The only place it doesn't work is the 20% of the windows, right? So that's why it's important. Why don't we head back to the studio? We'll pull up some Timber HP. Maybe we'll pull up one of my drawings and we could talk a little bit more about continuity, insulating sheathing, but we'll figure it out. We'll have fun. We'll grab Big Red. Yeah, I'll see you back at the studio.